What is up, everybody? Welcome to another GovSeeks. Get my hair dialed in here. Get that Superman curl dialed in. I'm having a delicious hot black tea. I don't drink coffee. Don't like it. Never have liked it. In my government secrets mug, which you too can get if you go to patreon.com/government secrets. Oh, just tastes like a CIA coup. That's what it tastes like. Just a hot CIA coup. It's just great. Tastes like genocide and imperialism at the behest of a handful of rich guys. That's what it tastes like. All right, folks, thank you for watching on the CIA Tube. Hit the like button, share this out on your social media. Everybody watching on Rockfin, thank you for joining us. And of course, we are on Twitch. We are on the Twitcher. Wait, let me shut that down. Everything's good. Sounds like everybody can see it, hear me all right. First the British and now the CIA stop ruining tea. Yes. The goal of the show is not to ruin tea. It's to ruin any hope you have of America being a good country. That's what this will do. All right, let us bring them in. The second half of Government Secrets and one of the two most censored comics in the world, ladies and gentlemen, Lee Camp.
Hey man, I'm at a CIA black site, so
yeah, it's good to see you. See you, buddy. Do you know where you are, or you were just hooded and then brought up there, or you're doing some CIA work?
Hold on. Let me ask someone. No, there's an electric prod actually if I get off the chair, so I'm gonna stay here. Unfortunately, I cannot do the show any longer because I just heard you don't like coffee. You've never liked coffee. I don't speak to people who don't like coffee and don't drink, Graham. It's just unacceptable.
I am the weirdest person in the world. I was having dinner with a friend of mine last summer from Japan, and I was like, nah, I like tea. And they're like, I think you're the only American I've ever met that didn't drink coffee. I'm like, yeah, I'm the one. I only drink tea. I don't drink alcohol. Yeah, I don't fit in. I don't fit into this society at all.
Yeah. I hate stabbings, but I love acupuncture. I don't know what it is. I'm a weird dude.
Well, it's because I don't like guns, but I train with Iai-Jitsu, which is the samurai sword. That's why I also like acupuncture, because it just makes more sense to me. I like somebody sticking with the needle.
When I'm stabbing someone with a sword, I say, just picture it as bigger acupuncture.
I'm releasing your chakra. And then I just take them out. It's pretty awesome.
By the way, at this point, should we rename the show the two most censored comedians in America?
Yes. We should just call it that. The two most censored comedians in America. Yeah, it's fantastic just watching. Like, I just was going through this morning, like my YouTube videos, and just seeing like, wow, this one gets so many less views, that, and and I had John Kiriakou on the show maybe a month or two ago to talk about Panquake, because he's an endorser of Panquake. Like 700, 800 views. I'm like, there's no way that guy would be getting less views. There's no, like,
Nope.
And whenever I have Susie Dawson on, I always get low views. Kiriakou, low views.
Yeah. Especially if you have the term Panquake. Well, now they're reading the transcript. So even if you just say something. So if you we should stop saying it. Panquaddle. That new site, Panquaducle.
Pan waffle.
If you say the pan earthquake thing, they've been crushing that. I mean, they banned most of their Twitter accounts. Like, I mean, for multiple reasons, but they just do it to competitors. So they know it when it's fully operable, it will be a massive competitor. So yeah,
That's why it's amazing. Like I was talking to Susie about this last week because I did this experiment last week to just show like how private intelligence works. I didn't say anybody by name. I didn't bring up anything. I didn't say mandates. I didn't say anything like that. And all of a sudden immediately got attacked. And it was like fascinating. And she was like, we talked about it afterwards. And she goes, yeah, Graham, this is classic targeting. Like one of the things they did, so I directed the movie Earbuds, right? And when we were raising money, because we raised money on Kickstarter in 2014, we shot it in 2014, 2015. It came out in 2016. We had a Twitter account, at Earbuds Pod Movie, that and I talked to Chris Mancini, we produced that movie together. Because somebody hijacked that account and now they changed the name of it to like Graham Elwood's a liar, or Graham Elwood loves Big Pharma, or something.
God.
Yeah. And the reason they did that was because, and I haven't looked at my Twitter profile in forever, because I said I'm the director of, and I put that Twitter handle in there. So now they hijacked it and so I was like, oh my God. So I've been having this thing up there. Well, people might look at my Twitter profile. Oh, he directed this movie. What's the movie? Oh, Graham Elwood's a liar because he loves Big Pharma. And Susie goes, Graham, that is classic private intelligence. They hijack accounts or create accounts directly to just go after whoever they're targeting. She goes, you've been so targeted. It was really fascinating to watch. I did this whole experiment in real time and people were like, oh, Graham Elwood. And I even said like, and she said, yeah, all those terms, like they try to make you feel insane. So they'll say you're having a meltdown, you're losing it. And I predicted, I said, this is what's going to happen. And sure enough, people were saying
other than all the outright, like clear censorship, all of our videos being banned on YouTube and everything. The clearest thing I've seen is that just a lot of my stuff. I mean, sometimes just going to my website, but oftentimes when people get emails from me, or especially if they get my, email list emails, they'll click it to open it and it'll say, this looks like phishing. Don't click on it, and the options are like, venture into the unknown or go back to safety or whatever the fuck it says. It's like, choose to have, something jammed up your urethra or go back to safety are the two options on the email. And it just makes it, I mean, the percentage of people that are going to be like, well, I want to read Lee Camp's email, but I don't want to read it so much that I'm willing to see if this hacks my account. So it has a powerful suppression influence,
And then because they know they so know how to profile people, they know how to stir up the easily manipulated. It's not like everyone that's ever said, attacked me on social media is a bot or private intelligence. I'm not saying that. There's a handful of people that are, but then the other ones are just easily influenced. Like they know how to create a mob fight. You know what I mean? Like I was pointing this out to somebody. I was at like some comics were having like a pool party and someone was like, Jesus, that was nuts. What happened to you online? I said, I was doing it as an experiment to show you. And I said, imagine, and we were just at this party and I walked up to you and said, man, I heard that. And I pointed someone across the room. I heard that guy was like talking shit about you or whatever. I mean, I was like, I mean, good for you for not wanting to fight him, but like that was fucked up. And good for you for just taking the higher ground. And I was like, and he went, oh, I go, see how that would, and then I play like I'm just this innocent bystander. So now you're thinking there's some fight between him that isn't there. I said, that's what they do. And they do it online. Right. And it's really fascinating to watch. It's really like, once you understand how they do it, you really can spot it quite easily. And then you see how susceptible people are. And I'm like, I wonder if I have ever fallen for something. Maybe we've all been propaganda,
yeah. I mean, we can get into this another time, but my latest video that I just put out on my only remaining YouTube channel, Moment of Clarity, is about how the ruling elite, you can call them a lot of things, the deep state, whatever. They've really lost control of the narrative the past 10, 15 years. And And now I put together some various examples in the video, but now I think they're basically trying to create a post-truth world where kind of your average person that's just trying to figure out what's going on in the world won't know what's up, what's down. They won't fucking know what's going on in any regard. And so there is no ability to unify against the ruling elite because people have no idea what the fuck's going on.
Well, and yeah, they've just, and it's, what's his name? Is it William Casey? What's that one quote he has of like, when nobody trusts anything or whatever? I forget that one famous quote that he has. Then we'll know we've won. And I think that's what's happening. So nobody believes anything. So then everyone's just fighting and trying to find some truth about whatever. And I wouldn't doubt. And so it's so hard to find any sort of foothold on what's real and what isn't, and who to believe and who not to believe. And that's what they want, because that in that environment, regardless of what the fight is about, it doesn't even matter. Is it at the People's Party mandates? It doesn't matter what the fight is about. If I can get you fighting Burger King versus McDonald's and not looking at the system in place that created Burger King and McDonald's, then I've got you.
And people, I think people think it's we're still in the traditional system where it's like, well, if you protest against this thing, then they'll shut you down, So if Black Lives Matter gets too powerful, then they will arrest people and put them in prison. They don't even need to do that anymore. They just make sure that the activist groups are all battling each other and never unifying. And then there's never a group large enough to threaten anything systemic,
It's that easy. It is literally, yeah. And if everyone's fighting and questioning everything and picking these ridiculous sides, and then it doesn't. I mean, I wouldn't doubt if the pharmaceutical companies put out anti-vax material just to keep people fighting with each other, because just because they're like, oh, then these variants will keep spreading if everyone's not vaccinated, and we'll make more money. Like, I wouldn't doubt. I have no evidence to suggest that, but I wouldn't doubt if they did that.
That would be a genius plan. Not that they're not that evil and villainous and genius, but yeah.
Right? Wouldn't that be, because I was looking at all this last year, and especially this last month, I was like, oh God, that I wouldn't put it past them. Again, I have no hard evidence to suggest, but I'm like, I wouldn't put it past them. They don't give a shit. They don't. And as you and I have uncovered on this show, in segment after segment after segment after segment, it's just like they will concoct the most sinister evil. I mean, like,
well, but the latest, one of the latest things is that the Biden administration has admitted, at least in the case of the war in Ukraine, that they're using faulty and unsourced intel to put stories out, and they're just like, they fucking admitted it. They said, like, there's NBC News articles saying, in a break with the past, the Biden administration says they're using, poorly intelligence sourced material for news and stories and the truth. And it's like, why should anyone believe a single word you say anymore? I mean, they shouldn't have before, but now you've admitted you're just making it up. Like, it's fucking insane.
It is insane. We live in an insane clown world, and America is a death cult. America's a cult in general. And then there's all these like subcults within it, and
I want to get to one of the key tenets of the cult in this episode, the petrodollar.
Yes. And I'm assuming you're going to say why the petrodollar is great. We all need it, and it's a good thing, and it keeps things stable.
Yeah, because it's oilier, it's slick, and you can use it for
smooth.
You can use it for moisturizer.
Yeah, it just kind of smooths it out. You know what I mean? It reduces the friction. It just.
Did you want to do a funny voice? That's the closest we have to production on this show. Is me going, Graham, can we get a funny voice?
Can you do a wacky voice, the intro voice? Can we get that? There's no like pre-recorded in. There's no producer. It's just, Graham, you want to do the thing where you eat the mic and talk like a monster truck guy?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Government Secrets episode 86 with Lee Capri. First segment, the petrodollar and how wonderful it is. Sit back and listen. Put this into your ear holes, you sons of bitches.
You really outdid yourself this time. You really did.
Well, there was so much
enjoyed it.
production value. You asked, hey, you want to do that? You want to do a weird voice? Like it felt like it needed more.
Let's see here. First slide. The petrodollar. And we've mentioned this many times in shows before, but this is the first time that I think this speaks to how this is a true government secret. And I know a lot of people watching this right now going, oh, I know about dollars. I know about petrodollars. This isn't really a government secret. But I think the truth about the petrodollar is hidden on a whole other level in that there is no Wikipedia article for the petrodollar.
Boy, is that so revealing. Like you and I, we reference Wikipedia a lot on this show, and we always make the preface of like, we're not saying we think Wikipedia is this like bastion of truth, but we're like, if Wikipedia is at least talking about this aspect of this secret, you know how there's a lot of truth to it. So the Wikipedia is saying, oh, there's the petrodollar.
It's pretty fucking bizarre because they do have, the only article they have related is something called petrodollar recycling, which is a term for one of the details of the petrodollar. But in any other Wikipedia article, and I'm talking like the fucking anteater, like how their ass hair grows, you would have a link to ass hair that you could get more detail on what ass hair is before you read about how the anteater's ass hair grows. This has petrodollar recycling as one of the articles, but there is no link to petrodollar, which is, I mean, I would love to know the internal WikiLeaks debate that finally just had the article like banned.
Yeah, I love. Well, first of all, I can't wait to know what CIA Operation Anteater Ass Hair is going to be. I can't wait to know what that CIA op is.
I think we covered that in episode 14, actually.
some Indonesian rebel group that the CIA funded to kill a bunch of nuns or some awful shit like that. But like the Wikipedia is just like, they probably have there's probably a dozen words that they just not allowed to mention. You can't even say it. Like, and if somebody says
because normally their form of propaganda is just giving a light definition. But apparently they couldn't even agree to just say, hey, the petrodollar is like, I don't know, it's a thing conspiracy theorists talk about. I don't know. But
I would think that they would give like some Webster style. The petrodollar is how the United States economy trades, commodities such as oil in a sovereign state with an agreement based upon the
and in that voice, it would say at the beginning, you have to use this voice, nerdy academic voice. But I did find the like liberal kind of like standard nasal voiced definition at investopedia.com, which just says petrodollars are not a currency. They're simply, and I love the word simply. It's basically, the word simply is basically saying, don't ask any more questions. They're simply US dollars that have been exchanged for crude oil exports.
The Tomahawk missile is not a weapon of death from above. Think of it like a sparkler that you use on 4th of July when your grandma makes you those Rice Krispie treats.
It's like you've seen a sparkler. It's like a big one that kills a town.
But they're a town of people that aren't us, so it doesn't matter.
Right.
And go back to your parade.
So anyway, that's the. And then the next sentence says, the term rose to economic and political prominence in the mid-1970s amid growing interdependence between the U.S. and crude oil exporters. And anyway, it's a completely like diluted, it's like taking a hard whiskey and putting it in a giant bottle of water. And you're like, this is what whiskey tastes like. No, that's not the real definition.
Alcoholism is when a person enjoys cocktails with friends on a regular basis. Like,
So, so I found an actually pretty damn good article on it, but it's on Medium, medium.com. So, people can feel free to argue about its accuracy, but I think it does a pretty good job of breaking down why the petrodollar is not just it's just when you pay $1 for some oil. That's all it is.
Think of it like traveler's checks. Remember the old school traveler's checks, and you just signed them, and it was like cash. That's what it is. You know what I mean?
Like traveler's checks, except if anyone in the Middle East says we're not going to use traveler's checks, we bomb them and bayonet them and hang them from the rafters.
Yeah, it's like that. It's like if somebody said they didn't accept this traveler's checks or these Gibbs cards, then you bring holy demonic hellfire from above until they capitulate to your every want and need. And even then, you keep bombing the fuck out of them. Yes.
Yeah, let's just say you're really into traveler's checks. Let's just say that.
Let's say you wish traveling was like it was back in the 80s, where you had to call a travel agent and get traveler's checks rather than just use your debit card in whatever country you're in. Let's say it's like that. Only you really also have the most well-funded death and destruction unit that's ever been created by the human race.
Okay, so we had something called the Bretton Woods system, which was our dollar backed by gold. You'll need that information in a minute. Then we switched to the petrodollar. So this is a bit of the history and why we did it and what it means now and why it's so important. But so the article states, despite the simple affirmation of dollars for oil, the petrodollar system has deep complexity, a feature that was very well designed to prevent the public to understand its mechanism. And this is an amazing quote from Henry Ford, who said, "It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system, for if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning."
Yes. What did they say? The affection for oil or money. What was that first sentence? Like
they're saying the simple affirmation, as in people call it dollars for oil, as if it's just dollars for oil. That's all it is.
It's just, Lee, it's an affirmation. So just think of that, like when you say, like, I like myself, I'm good at what I do, just say the petrodollar is good. And
it's just dollars for oil. That's all it is.
And helps people. It makes the world a better place. Stop with these negative Nelly.
And stop asking questions. And if you want to know more, just look it up Wikipedia. That's just go to Wikipedia.
I just think, Lee, there's just too much negative Nelly in you saying the petrodollar is so bad. I think you need positive affirmations that petrodollar is good. It helps us. Like, don't be a Debbie Downer, buddy.
I know I am. So approaching the end of the 1970s, it was clear that Bretton Woods was close to its end. In the climate of tension and concerns, Henry Kissinger.
Yes.
Drum roll, please. Henry Kissinger. Henry Kissinger, the U.S. Secretary of State under Nixon, knew for a fact that the collapse of the Bretton Woods Agreement would have caused a decline in the demand of U.S. dollars, causing the loss of Washington global trade and influence hegemony. So basically, Bretton Woods ends and the U.S. is kind of fucked. So Kissinger thinks, well, how do we solve that? Meaning, how do we keep the U.S. unfucked? The secretary held numerous meetings with the Saudi Arabian royal family.
Great.
Kissinger then came up with a brilliant idea, replacing the gold standard with a promise of America to back up, support, and intervene in aid to the Saudis in exchange for their oil fields. The Saudi royals knew a good deal when they saw one. They were more than willing to accept weapons and basically the guarantee that the giant U.S. military machine will restrain any attacks on the kingdom, especially from neighboring Israel, an enemy with which the kingdom had been at war since the late 1950s. So this would explain, for those who wonder, why Saudi Arabia and Israel, that used to be at each other's throats, have not really gone at each other since the 70s.
Huh. It's weird. And Saudi Arabia went, yep, we'll give you oil, you give us weapons, and we can just be an evil empire out in the open. We can beat the shit out of women, treat them like dogs. We can
chop up Washington Post journalists.
Yeah, we can chop them up and no one's going to hold us accountable. And Israel went, yeah, and then we can just treat the Palestinians like slaves and take their land.
And by the way, you want to know how redacted the petrodollar conversation is? That despite the fact that after Saudi Arabia chopped up Khashoggi, the Washington Post journalist, and fed him into a barbecue pit, Congress did have debates and discussions about decreasing the amount, the billions of dollars of aid to Saudi Arabia, decreasing the help the U.S. gives them in the genocide in Yemen, to perpetrate the genocide. But during that entire discussion, one of the few times that ever anything withdrawn from Saudi Arabia has ever been debated, there was no mention of petrodollar. The word petrodollar never came up.
I just forgot to bring it. I'm sorry. I forgot to bring up my fault. It's I forgot to bring up petrodollar.
I was meaning to, but some nerds from Wikipedia came and broke my elbows and knees. So
they took my Wikipedia folder and they said they'll hold on to it for me. And then I heard the sound of a paper shredder in the next room, but I didn't.
They said they changed my Wikipedia entry to my name being synonymous with the crud that collects on your taint. And so I chose to just ignore this topic.
Taint Crud was my favorite wrestler in the 80s.
Taint Crud's his finishing move honestly was graphic. I'll be honest, it was graphic.
It was very graphic. And when Mean Gene would I have to talk about it, it made everybody uncomfortable. But he won. He was fun to watch.
So what exactly did the United States want in exchange for their weapons and military protection? The Americans laid out their terms, and they were rather simple at first glance. The Saudis must agree. Number one, the Saudis must agree to price all of their oil sales in U.S. dollar only, refusing all other currencies except the dollar. Number two, the Saudis would be open to investing their surplus oil proceeds in U.S. debt securities. So those were the two things. A brilliantly executed plan by the American administration that would have been enough to propel them into the economic stratosphere for the coming decades. The agreement was officialized on June 8th, 1974. The Americans did clever calculations as the following years saw a multitude of other oil-producing countries wanting in on the deal. So you had a bunch of other countries saying, yeah, we want to put our oil in dollars too. And I'm sure, who knows what those conversations were like. I'm sure the U.S. had many other threats behind them.
No, nobody was threatened. It was all just legit. It was all just like, yeah, if you guys don't do the petrodollar, it'd be a real shame if one of your princes fell down a flight of stairs. It'd be a real shame. You know what I mean? Petrodollar makes stairs not as slick, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. It totally does. The stairs are rough pre-petrodollar. So 1975, all of the oil-producing nations of OPEC, the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, which is, most people know, massively powerful, they'd all agreed to price their oil in dollars and to hold their surplus oil proceeds in U.S. government debt securities in exchange for generous offers by the U.S. The global artificial demand for U.S. dollars would not only remain intact, but it would also soar due to the increasing demand for oil around the world. And as you know, we can talk more about this towards the end, but I'm sure other people are noticing that, boy, this gives the United States a massive reason to never get off oil and to make sure the entire world stays on oil, even if it's causing the planetary demise.
Yep.
So without the constraints imposed by a rigid gold standard, the U.S. monetary base could be grown at exponential rates. It should come as no surprise that the U.S. maintains a major military presence in much of the Persian Gulf region, including the following countries: Bahrain, Iraq, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Israel, Jordan, and Yemen. And FDR said, "I hereby find that the defense of Saudi Arabia is vital to the defense of the United States." So this would also explain why, and the article does not get into this, but why, as we've mentioned before on this show, that every time a country drops the petrodollar, the U.S. usually bombs the living fuck out of them, sometimes invades, sometimes we just have other smaller things we do to deal with them. But Syria dropped the dollar. Iran has dropped the dollar. By the way, Iran dropped the dollar under Trump, and within a year, Trump sent a drone bomb through their top general. Iraq dropped the dollar, and that somehow, coincidentally, soon after Saddam Hussein's head popped off.
Yeah, it was weird. They dropped the dollar, and all of a sudden they had weapons of mass destruction. The minute they dropped the dollar, suddenly they had nukes in their country. That was weird.
It was weird. It was totally weird. Just weird coincidence. And Gaddafi dropped the dollar, and in fact was talking about creating a African currency called the gold dinar in place of the petrodollar. That soon saw him with a bayonet through him. And Hillary Clinton cackled in her interview and said, "We came, we came, we saw he died," or whatever she said, and
Yes.
she laughed hysterically.
Yep.
So while we may, and of course Venezuela is not on the petrodollar, which we have economic war against them that's killed 100,000 people. I'll just say we're not a fan when people drop the petrodollar.
And it's weird, when Putin and China got rid of the petrodollar and started trading in either rubles and China started using the petro yuan. Wow, it's funny. Those two countries became the top of the bad guy list for the United States. It's weird.
Yep.
It's almost seems like every war we get into and every enemy we have is just somebody that won't do business with our petrodollar. I don't know.
It does seem like there might be some connection. Not sure what it is, but I think this piece of the puzzle probably helps people put a lot together. Why the U.S. would care so immensely about invading these countries, destroying them, gutting them. People would say it's about oil, but then, we didn't steal that much oil from Iraq. We've stolen only a little from Syria. Like saying it's about oil, and America now, because of fracking, the horrific practice of fracking, is now a net exporter of oil. But saying it's about oil doesn't do it justice, because that doesn't really make a lot of sense. We have tons of oil. We haven't stolen that much. So it's about something far greater, which is the fact that if these countries drop the dollar and that catches on, the American dollar would collapse and the U.S. would be just another country. We would not be the hegemonic power we are.
Yeah. And I think, we've talked about this before in the show. I think that what's our sanctioning of Russia with regards to the Ukraine invasion is part of like America's beginning of the end. I did a story. We talked about it a little on this show, how Israel is just selling off the US dollar along with 52 other countries. Like even our allies are kind of quietly going, yeah, maybe the dollar will just kind of slowly convert it to something else. I think that's starting to happen because, and I have
an update on that, which is Henry Kissinger came out of the woodwork, came out of whatever. And by woodwork, I mean, came out of the coffin, came out of the woodwork coffin he was in, 99 years old, I believe, and spoke at Davos at the World Economic Forum last week, I think last week. And he said to end the proxy war, he didn't use the term proxy war, but to end the war in Ukraine as soon as possible. Because he actually sees, and it's the first time I've ever agreed with Kissinger in his entire life and my entire life. He's doing it he's saying it for a completely different reason than I am. I'm saying end the war because I don't want to see Ukrainians die. He's saying end the war because he's seeing the larger writing on the wall, which is that the U.S. is kind of unknowingly forcing the hand of an economic split that we can't win in terms of hegemonic power. And in order to defend our system, we're going to be pushed into more and more pathetic, desperate wars which may look powerful, make us look powerful. We may kill a lot of people. We may, quote unquote, win these wars, but it will be the demise of the U.S. empire. But we're headed there anyway. It's just Kissinger sees the writing on the wall that this is hastening the demise instead of helping.
And if you, I mean, historically, empires don't just like collapse overnight. Like I think Americans keep waiting for this like thunderclap collapse. You know, like January 6th, if that would have spilled into some big civil war and then society, they think there's going to be this like one big event. We are already collapsing. We are a collapsing empire. And historically, you know, no empire collapsed.
I thought that was just our bridges.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just look at the infrastructure is slowly collapsing. There's no money for anything because we've spent all this money on war. Our military is spread all over the world. We don't spend money on our own citizens. There's a handful of people that control the country, and both political parties are puppets of these people. They get all the money. And Kissinger, who is evil, I don't know who's been mentioned more, like through line recurring characters in the government secrets, him or Dulles. I can't remember which. Like, those two assholes have done more awful shit in the name of America.
Yeah.
But like, and he's right, because if you look at what's happening, and you and I talked about this here, we both talked about it on our individual shows, is look at what happened, right? Like when all the sanctions started happening a couple months ago and everything, you had Russia, China, and India all like, nah, we're not against America. You know, we're not against Russia. You know, we're not going to get involved. We're not going to just immediately back America and line up against. So those are three.
And Pakistan, did you say that?
Yeah, Pakistan. Like, find me a time when India and Pakistan agree upon anything. This is one of them. So you've got literally almost half of the world's population between those four countries.
And Pakistan and India don't agree anymore because we soft cooed Imran Khan. So he's out now.
Yeah.
And to whatever, 3 weeks ago, we got him out. And so now Pakistan's like, we're back with the U.S.
Yeah. Because that's what we do. Somebody doesn't agree with us, we soft coup them, you know, or we just hard coup them, whatever you want to do. And then that's what happens.
It's a soft serve coup. It comes out of like a squirty gun rather than like a scoop.
Yeah, it's sort of like the t-shirt cannon of coups, like at a sporting event when they just shoot a t-shirt. It's not like the hard.
Like, yeah, it would hurt you if you were up close to it, but otherwise you're excited.
Yeah, like, oh, I got a t-shirt. We got a soft coup. It's pretty exciting.
So a little more before we wrap up on the petrodollar. Okay. The petrodollar system, there to continue from the article, therefore provides at least three immediate benefits to the U.S. One, it increases global demand for U.S. dollars. The more demand that exists for the currency, the better it is for the producer. Number two, it gives the U.S. the ability to buy oil with a currency it can print at will. This point is of particular importance, deeply tied with the rise in demand for the dollar. This artificial demand for the currency allows Washington to print dollars at will, which are then used to buy real-world assets and services. By the law of supply and demand applied to the currency supply increase, an increase in the supply of money causes the value of the money to decrease over time, a phenomenon called inflation. Not sure if you've heard of it.
I have not. It's not directly affecting my life every day. No, I don't know what it is.
And just recently during COVID, they printed, what was it, $4.25 trillion for Wall Street?
Yes.
And number three, it increases global demand for U.S. debt securities. One of the most brilliant aspects of the petrodollar system was requesting that oil-producing nations take their excess oil profits and place them into U.S. debt securities in Western banks. This system would later become known as petrodollar recycling, as coined by Henry Kissinger. So that does have a Wikipedia article.
Oh, of course, some scammy petrodollar recycling. So that just makes it sound all fluffy, just like.
So the petrodollar system allowed the United States to go on a shopping spree with virtually no limitation to their spending capability, a kind of infinite money glitch or money cannon. And in a way, you could say this is why our ruling elite were like, well, let's spend all of the money on the military because this free for all won't last forever. So let's use our fake money to create the world's largest military by a factor of 10. And then when this is all collapsing down and the dollar's losing its value and we don't have the petrodollar anymore, we'll have the world's biggest military and we can just keep our empire via gun. So
it's going to be great when we just start having to sell off. Like what happened in Afghanistan is just going to start happening where all of our bases are. We're just like, bye. We're just going to leave, billions of dollars worth of gear here and whatever army or rebel unit or Taliban, whatever, they're just going to get all of our, that's what's going to happen. We're just going to leave all of these bases and with all of our stuff as America slowly starts to collapse and won't be able to finance the stuff anymore.
Yeah. And the reason this is such an important government secret is this underlies the reasoning behind a lot of U.S. foreign policy. And of course, you will just about never hear the term petrodollar on mainstream media. So in that way, it's one of the largest government secrets because it's underneath everything.
Oh yeah. I mean, this is probably the single biggest motivating factor with our foreign policy for the last 50 years, or more even. I mean, even before the petrodollar was invented, it was about this. And especially since the 70s. I mean, and it's not a coincidence that Nixon took us off the gold standard in whatever 1971 or 72 and turned us into a fiat currency. And then, oh, hey, the petrodollar started, it's been the single motivating factor for all of this, which motivates so many of the segments. I mean, literally a majority of the segments we've covered on this show about Operation this or CIA that or cover up or, there was some element of the petrodollar in there somewhere. I mean, when we talk about all the coups we've done.
Yeah, I'd say it was a combination of stopping communism and socialism.
Yeah.
And defending the petrodollar. And that switch where it becomes more about defending the petrodollar, then it becomes about socialism happens in the mid 70s.
Yeah. And that's where you see it. I mean, you see like when we listed all the Central and South American countries that the CIA has done a coup in, a lot of that had to do with oil. I mean, we've talked about Venezuela as like the prime example. They've got the #1 oil reserves in the world. They wanted to socialize and, Chavez came in 98 or whatever and said, I'm going to socialize all this. And he helped, working class people, pulled people out of poverty with everything. And then that's when we're like, oh, he's bad. He's a tyrant. He's just like Saddam. Another guy.
He's a dictator. Yeah. And actually we should do a segment on the attempted coup against the U.S. coup against him in 2002, where they basically couped him it lasted about 2 days or a day or something, because the people of Venezuela absolutely wanted Chavez to be the president. So, we we, via proxies, kidnapped him, took him out of office, put in a puppet. And within a day, there were just too many Venezuelans being like, fuck you, and bringing Chavez back.
Well, I mean, we tried it. What was it? 2 summers ago, we sent those CIA guys to Venezuela and they got caught with their Texas IDs or whatever.
Yeah, the Bay of Piglets, which that's what people called it. But I just discussed that the other day, yesterday, the day before, an interview with Alan McLeod, the journalist Alan McLeod, with Mint Press, because I didn't realize this. The U.S. has essentially admitted involvement in that. Esper, the former defense secretary, has put out a tell-all book or whatever, and in it, this hasn't been mentioned almost anywhere. Like Mint Press is the only place I've seen an English discussion of this. In that book, buried in 700 pages or whatever, is Esper's admission that the U.S. had many talks about assassinating Maduro and were connected to that pathetic mercenaries caught by fishermen off the coast of Venezuela.
I know that was in our news like for like half a day, and then just like, oh, some guys got caught. I don't know, kind of a mix-up thing. Maybe they had fake IDs. They were trying to get into a bar. Anyway, coming up next, it was just really they just smoothed over it very quickly.
Anyway, coming up next, your segment.
Government secret segment number 2. Bum, 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 bum. That's dramatic music. I just
Operation Northwoods.
Operation Northwoods.
I was doing what I love doing, which is just typing in CIA operation. And I found this because it, again, like a lot, now that we've been doing this show a while, we're coming up on 2 years of doing this show, is, we're finding, as we just mentioned in your segment about the petrodollar, there's a lot of through lines. And so we obviously covered JFK. We've covered, you covered it, and I've been reading the book, JFK and the Unspeakable, how all of what led up to the assassination of JFK was all of his, like, I'm done with war. I'm done with the CIA. I want to pull out of Vietnam. Well, this is another thing that ties into that. So Operation Northwoods was a proposed false flag operation against American citizens that originated with the U.S. Department of Defense and the United States government in 1962. The proposals called for CIA operatives to both stage and actually commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets, blaming them on the Cuban government.
Killing civilians.
Yes. And then say, oh no, look what Cuba's doing. Right?
Right. If you want to pull up that slide. And this got all the way to Kennedy's desk.
Look at this psycho. God, that guy just looks nuts. Like these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you can see he has a real lizard look. The sunken eyes, and you feel like the two eyes could go opposite directions and like watch things like an iguana or something.
He's eaten like a live chicken. He bit off a live chicken's head or something like that. He's done that. Like, and so they wanted to justify this the CIA operatives to both stage and commit acts of terrorism against American military and civilian targets. So we wanted to kill our own military. So if you sign up for the American military, there's a chance your own government might kill you just to go, oh, we've been attacked. So that's great.
Yeah, no, you should know that before signing that paperwork.
Quick little FYI. I mean, you're an adult, so make your own decisions, but just you might want to know that. They don't give a shit about you. The possibilities detailed in the document included the possible assassination of Cuban immigrants, sinking boats of Cuban refugees on the high seas, hijacking planes to be shot down or given the appearance of being shot down, blowing up a U.S. ship. Again, this is in Wikipedia. So like we talked about, they're putting this in Wikipedia. So if Wikipedia is, it says that there's probably way more to this than they're even revealing, but at least Wikipedia is revealing this because these are leaked documents, of course.
Right. This means even the liberals of the world have admitted this.
And one of the other things was orchestrating violent terrorism in U.S. cities. So, let me pull this out here. So this was an article that came out in January. Again, these are leaked documents, came out in 2001. U.S. military wanted to provoke war with Cuba. And this was on abcnews.com talking about this Operation Northwoods. And the plans were developed as ways to trick the American public and the international community into supporting a war to oust Cuba's then leader, communist Fidel Castro. Ooh, communists, bad. America's top military brass even contemplated causing U.S. military casualties, writing, "We could blow up a U.S. ship in Guantanamo Bay and blame Cuba and casualty lists in U.S. newspapers would cause a helpful wave of national indignation. Gee, that's never happened before. They've never actually done that, right? I mean, that's just a crazy idea, right? I mean,
we could kill Americans and then everybody'd be on our side. They'd love us.
Huh. It almost feels like, I mean, I don't want to bring up, there's nothing. It's not like the Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag, or this document doesn't at least give some merit to anybody who has questions on 9/11. Like,
yeah.
I know that's a crazy can of worms to get into, but just it really, the fact that they said this.
Well, and I've also covered, I can't remember which app, but it was a while ago, but we talked about the number of times the U.S. has used chemical warfare on its own citizens.
Oh yeah.
And they did a ton of testing, and like literally dropped various types of chemicals and germ warfare on U.S. cities to see how it would impact people. And a few people died. They claim that what they were dropping was not non-toxic or whatever, but a few people died from it. And it just goes to show the U.S. is willing to use terrorism on their own people when they find it useful.
Yeah. They'll use us as lab rats. They'll kill our own soldiers. I mean, you have to, I mean, this documents that come up from the 60s, this was their plan. And had Kennedy said yes, this would have happened. This is also one of the reasons they were like, oh, we got to get rid of Kennedy.
Right. Well, and this is also when Kennedy starts to realize this in the Bay of Pigs, where he was he agreed to the Bay of Pigs, but the CIA tried to trick him into fully invading Cuba. Those two things made him realize that the CIA was not with him and was fully against him.
Yeah. And I think it was it was spring of 63 when he gave that American University speech, the big speech about how to it was talking about peace and disarmament and all that stuff. And
talking about how the Soviet Union is, wonderful people who ended World War II.
Yeah. They sacrificed more than America did in World War II.
Yeah. 27 million compared to 500,000.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a jump.
Slight difference.
Just a hair, just a cat's whisker. And it really revealed that he was like, oh, this is right around the time, again, you said Bay of Pigs, which is right when he first got into office. And then this thing that came across his desk, and just the references in the book, JFK and the Unspeakable, about all the insane things they were pitching him, like, acceptable losses in a nuclear war with Russia,
yeah,
we could lose 10, 20 million Americans, but we'd win that. Like, and
they were like, they tried to convince him on a preemptive strike, a first strike on the Soviet Union of nuclear weapons. And he was like, would they hit us back? And he's like, yeah, but we'd win. And he's like, how many would we lose? And they're like, oh, around 10 million, but we'd win. And you're like, you're presenting to me something where we lose 10 million citizens?
Yeah. These people are psychopaths. They're pure evil. They concoct this up and said this to the president of the United States with a straight face, hoping he said yes. And so the thing you got to ask yourself, how many presidents have said yes to stuff like, you think about like the USS Cole bombing? Was that the CIA? Was that a false flag? You have to ask all of these questions. Like anything that happened, 9/11, the first trade towers bombing, was any of these things like CIA? You have to ask this question, at least, was it? Because it's really like, this is their plan. They put out there, this is our game plan. It'll be in the news. Americans will jump on board. Patriotism will win. And they tried it numerous times. When Trump was in office, they were trying to get Trump to go direct to war with Iran. He drone striked that guy and killed that general that was actually an ally of ours. But remember, I kept calling the Gulf of Suez, or the Strait of Suez or whatever. I call that false flag highway. We kept trying to like, oh, the ship got attacked, and we were like provoking them. We were so trying to get into a thing to say Iran did something. And if there's any hint that Biden might like back down or pull out of like, no more, let's find peace in Ukraine, no more war, we're not going to give them any more funding. Be ready for some Russian terrorists to happen in wherever the fuck, Disneyland or what, something like that's going to happen.
Yeah. And they keep laying down preparations for possible false flags. Like for a while they were saying, oh, Russia looks like they're going to use chemical weapons in Ukraine. And it was like, why the fuck would Russia use something that would get them indicted around the world? And I know people say, oh, they're already indicted around the world for their invasion, but a lot of countries understand that they were forced to do this. I mean, let me be clear, I'm opposed to it, but yeah, why it'd be fucking insane to use chemical weapons. And the U.S. kept saying, oh no, it looks like they're going to. Then the other one was, oh, it looks like they're going to attack Chernobyl. And there was like no evidence of any of this. They were just saying it to basically lay the groundwork so that, the Nazis and the Ukrainian military could create a false flag situation.
I mean, we're right. Just everybody watching this, be ready for some type of false flag. If it seems like we might pull back or not do this war with all full throttle, or we're going to stop funding Ukraine, there's going to be something. It might even be in Western Europe. I mean, there's going to be some false flag where Putin's thugs, blew up a fucking Starbucks or something like that. Just be ready for that shit. They're trying to take away our freedoms to get everybody in America specifically to go, oh my God, we can't let this happen. Like there's going to be some false flag probably on American soil. That's what I worry about the most is, and or thwarted attempt or something like that. And the guy who stopped the terrorists, it'll be a Second Amendment guy. So they'll go, see, we all need guns because Russia's coming or whatever, however they'll fucking tie it into their psychopathic cult nonsense. Because America's a cult. America is a cult. But a couple more things on this psychopathic. So the kind of, since, Castro came into power in 1959, and again, he allowed communists in, which we can't. He was nationalizing U.S. businesses. Well, that's your second mistake right there, Fidel. And he improved relations with the Soviet Union, arousing the concern of the U.S. military. The operation proposed creating public support for a war against Cuba by blaming it for terrorist acts that would actually be perpetrated by the U.S. government. This is that would implicate, and this was their statement from Operation Northwoods. The desired result, this again, their words, this is the words of the psychos that are in our government. The desired result from the execution of this plan would be to place the United States in an apparent position of suffering defensible grievances from a rash and irresponsible government of Cuba and develop an international image of a Cuban threat to peace in the Western Hemisphere. This is some of the actual things. Operation recommended developing a communist Cuban terror campaign in the Miami area. Again, this all ties into what they did with Lee Harvey Oswald to put him as the patsy, to show that, oh, he was a communist sympathizer. He loved Fidel Castro because he went to the Soviet Union and the ties to Cuba. Like they just tried to blame JFK's assassination. This was the grounding. This was the first seeds being laid of that when JFK wouldn't go along with this plan. They're like, all right, well, then we're going to take JFK out and we're going to use this similar storyline of it's Cuba and Russia working together. They were starting to do this in the Miami and other Florida cities, and even in Washington, which involved the bombing of civilian targets themselves, which was to be blamed on the irresponsible Cuban government to paint a false image of Fidel Castro and mainstream American public. The plan was drafted by Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Lyman Letminzer, that's that evil dude we just showed, and sent to the Secretary of Defense. Although part of the U.S. government's anti-communist Cuban project, so they already had this project in place, Operation Northwoods was never officially accepted. It was authorized by the Joint Chiefs of Staff, but then rejected by President Kennedy. None of the false flag aspirations became active under the auspices of Operation Northwoods proposals.
See, there's a bit of a flaw in our military and deep state system, which is in order to get it to the top of the military, you have to be really good and committed to military. So therefore, you have to want to kill a lot of people. And then you end up with an entire top echelon of people that are either really good at killing or really devoted to killing lots of people. And then when they get together and they go, here's an idea we have. Well, what do you know? Their ideas generally kind of tilt towards let's kill a lot of people. And so then they go to the president, they go, we've gotten together and all of us think it would be fucking aces if we killed a lot of people. So it's a bit of a flaw in the system.
There's this is like, we want all psychopaths who love planning and killing people. They're power hungry, and are so delusional with their power hungry that they think they're doing it for some greater good of the American flag and the Constitution and freedom, justice, and the American way, and Superman and apple pie and baseball games. So yeah, you tend to then have the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which are all sociopaths. So that's Operation Northwoods. While although not officially approved, you have to wonder if some of the pages of that playbook have been used since.
No, I don't think so. I think that was one unique moment where our grand president said, not on my watch.
And then the CIA and the Joint Chiefs of Staffs all went, you're right.
You're right. We are never going to propose something like that again.
No way. We're just going to try to make Americans' lives better and bring peace throughout the land. That's what happened.
That's what happened. And they walked out of that room with their heads down and their tails between their legs. And they said, we need to alter our behavior going forward.
Well, they started doing trust exercises. The Joint Chiefs, one guy would fall back and all the generals would catch him.
You know, the one where you wear the sumo suit that's like inflatable and you do sumo wrestling against other people. They did that kind of thing.
Yes. They did a lot of meditation. I think they did positive affirmations.
And a lot of kind of peaceful, meditative, slow motion circle jerks.
Yeah. Well, that was when they instituted the yoga room in the Pentagon,
which got sticky real quick.
It got real sticky real quick. So yeah, they started doing the yoga room, and I'm so glad Kennedy said no, because things have been so much better ever since he said no. And we all know Kennedy died of natural causes.
Of natural causes that came from both the front and the back of his head.
Right. He had really bad hay fever and he sneezed. And unfortunately, he died.
Everyone knows if the hay fever gets bad enough, your head explodes.
Right. And Lee Harvey Oswald was just a guy who liked parades, and he created, and so everything was natural. And, Jack Ruby was also they all had really bad hay fever around the same time.
Jack Ruby, the guy with CIA types who owned a strip club, he was just really devoted to America. And he just really was upset that the president had been killed. And he was like, you know what? I'm gonna destroy my life to take out the man who took out JFK. That's exactly what it was.
Yes. All of this makes perfect sense. Oh, thank God America's so better. Happy ever after credits roll. Just watching kids playing in a meadow while some American patriotic song plays, and there's just a faint flag waving in the background. You know what I mean? It's beautiful.
Speaking of credits roll, folks, we're not done hanging out, and we hope you're not done either. Come join us at patreon.com/government secrets. We have an extra segment or two for you over there. You can also get a Government Secrets mug, Government Secrets t-shirt, all that stuff. Patreon.com/government secrets, because you'll notice we have no ads on this show. We're not sponsored by nobody, because for some odd reason, corporate America doesn't like us. So I don't know why. So
I've emailed Raytheon numerous times, and they never want to buy ad time with us. I don't get it.
Title of email: open to sponsorship. Yes. So join us over there for exclusive segments every single week.
Yes, and we're going to go there. If you're watching live, we're going to go there right now. Don't forget to go to grahamelwood.com. I've got tour dates with Ron Placone in July. We're going to Portland, Seattle, and Vancouver, Washington. More tour dates to be announced soon. I'm going to be shooting a stand-up special in Chicago the end of October at Zanies. That'll be on my website soon. So I'll be doing a bunch of dates leading up to that. So check that out.
See you in about 5 minutes, man.
See you over at Patreon, guys. Go to patreon.com/Government Secrets.
This is Government Secrets regular episode 86. Put it in the books like Operation Northwoods.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon over at Patreon. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Holly. Thank you, everybody. See you in Portland. Backyard Politics. You all are the best. Ba-boom.